Just ask a couple of questions in order to promote your talk at the upcoming Enter the Metaverse conference, particularly centered around gaming and the future of the metaverse. And I was just looking at your article there at the different megatrends, and I mean, I probably would take a lot of time to kind of dig into it, and there's so many of them there. But what do you think are some of the most significant megatrends, social, technological, that are affecting the future of the metaverse? Which ones, do you see as the most significant?
Well, there are a lot of important trends. I've identified 9 of them in the article, and I'll be talking about those more. But the thing I would really highlight for people is to think not only about the technology, but the things that are happening in culture and society. Because when I look at the world today, it's much different than it was, say, 20 years ago. We've now had a couple of generations of people who have grown up in virtual worlds and MMORPGs and an online experience. And what's really at the center of that is this idea that our online identity for many, many people is just as important, if not even more important, than their physical identity. So that has come about through playing online games and esports, or who you are in social networks. So when we think about the metaverse, it's going to build on top of all of that. So the metaverse will be about extending this online identity beyond games and into social experiences and live music and workforce collaboration. I don't think that would be possible if people hadn't already become both trained to that as well as comfortable with the idea of their identity, their property really existing in the virtual world. And I tend to use physical versus virtual rather than virtual versus real, because everything in the virtual world is real. Your relationships are real, and people think of them as selves and their things there as real. And that's really the biggest trend that enables all of this, I think.
100%. And you have a generation growing up now in a mostly digital world. So that's obviously going to contribute to the comfortability and the acceptability of that mixing of virtual and physical reality. And how do you think gaming has shaped our expectations of the metaverse? Could you almost look at the metaverse as the evolution of gaming? Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I mean, first of all, just technologically speaking, it's built on the game tech stack. So if you look at what's enabling the metaverse, it's the 3D graphics and the immersiveness on the surface layer of it, and then the virtual worlds environments and the persistence of worlds and identity and whatnot underneath that. So that's the technology. But of course, the ability to navigate and experience virtual worlds that's really what's trained people for the metaverse.
Yeah, and do you think, in terms of the metaverse, I was reading in one of your articles recently, the difficulty between AR and VR, that you'll explore the virtual reality, but that there'll be the augmented reality that we'll use in normal day-to-day life. Could you expand on that a little bit? I found it a very interesting idea.
I think it's important to remember that the metaverse, first of all, is not just a place you go into. It's going to surround and permeate everything that we do. And I don't actually think of the metaverse as requiring a particular graphical user interface. So I don't think it's AR versus VR or even 2D screens. All of those are ways to access the metaverse. If you go all the way back to Neil Stephenson's idea of the metaverse, by the way, there would be different people experiencing the metaverse with different levels of graphics, for example, according to whatever their technology available was. So I think that we'll have lots of ways to access it. Now, augmented reality is a way to blend the physical world with all of this set of sensor information and digital holograms and all the things that we're going to add to the physical world through the metaverse. Virtual reality is more about going and being ensconced in an experience, but those are actually just 2 ways that you're going to access it. The metaverse is ultimately really about real-time experience. It's about being present as yourself in a world and an experience, and that while it might feel more embodied when you have VR, AR, embodiment is not really a requirement of the metaverse. It's more that real-time aspect, which, of course, games, which we were just talking about, games has led the way on that. Games is the real-time activity that people have been doing on the internet for years and years. And if we think of the metaverse as this next generation of the internet that's really informed by real-time activity and games in particular, that's what it's really about. It's just going to be that real-time activity will become the defining characteristic of the internet, as opposed to going to just a web page or making a purchase, more transactional activities.
Yeah, and that change in content as well, that it goes from kind of on-demand content to something that is kind of persistent and that you're kind of inhabiting as well. And could you just tell us a little bit about, what your talk is going to be about at the Enter the Metaverse conference, and what message would you like people to leave with about the metaverse?
Well, I'm going to be talking about all these megatrends that are shaping the metaverse. So I think it's important for people to think of the metaverse not as a product with a feature checklist that you address all the features and then you've got the metaverse. The metaverse really is this next generation of the internet. So I'm really going to be talking about all of the mega trends that are driving it and shaping it. So we'll talk about some of the social trends, some of the technology trends. We'll talk about artificial intelligence and the idea of digital identity. We'll be talking about the rivalry between open standards and the walled gardens that are starting to emerge. We'll talk about creators and the creator economy. So all of these are really important trends so that you can conceptualize and have a more holistic understanding of really what is happening in this next generation of the internet.
That is a masterful analysis, Jon. Thank you very much. I've been talking to a lot of people who work in the metaverse and reading their stuff, and it seems like you have such a great encompassing of all the different levels of it. I'm really looking forward to hearing you talk about it more and learn a bit more. So thank you very much for answering these questions, Jon.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.